Welcome to the Black Women's World Podcast. Welcome to Black Women's World, where Black women vibe and thrive together. And if you ain't a Black woman, you'll get to know at least one. Because this Black Women's World, my Black woman's world, is whatever I say it is, simply because I am. So welcome, Sistanistas and Sistanista lovers. We're here for you. Much love and peace. Good morning, everybody. This is TracyMac, pastor of Peace Place for Me. Peace Place for Me is a virtual inclusive community, but Peace Place for Me even reaches beyond the offerings I do in the virtual community. It is the opportunity for me to be mobile, inclusive, and it's not just a one-stop shop, but Peace Place is also what I provide for leaders, pastors, CEOs, whatever, because who helps the leader? Where's their soft place to fall? So I'm grateful for my virtual community and also the way that God has allowed me to help care for other people in so many different ways. So I'm glad to be here. I know it's been a minute, but I'm still so grateful for you all that choose to get up bright and early with me on a Sunday morning. So whether it's just us at Peace Place or whether this is something that I offer to the Black Women's World podcast community, I am so glad for you, my sisters and sisternistas and sisterista lovers and everybody. So in this particular format, I always try to encourage and edify as well as educate. But I was thinking, I had a whole lot of time to do some thinking. And I was thinking about you all and how we interact here in this space and what community is. What is community? What does it mean to be in community with other people? What does it mean to, especially as our lives have evolved and changed, when the pandemic hit, so many things became virtual. Even though many of us were already operating virtually, I know business-wise, thank God somebody had turned me on to Zoom probably back in about 3 years before COVID. And it was new and it was something I was afraid of, but it allowed me to have clients across the globe virtually. So by the time the pandemic hit and it became a necessity, thank God I was already in place because somebody else had told me about it. And I began to be able to help train other coaches, some pastors and church people and some organizations on just how to use the basic parts of Zoom. Now you've got so many other platforms. And so virtual is here to stay. And so we either need to learn to work with it because working against it ain't gonna help nobody. So I was really thinking about this particular community and then the community at large, whether it be podcast community or those people that we may not see in our virtual Peace Place community who my life touches. And it's a beautiful thing, but yet sometimes people think that who they see is all you see. And I began to think about so many different things going on in the world. And even here in the United States and even in the global economy, even in global politics. Right now we have the Olympics going on. I love to see those type of things, even though a lot of people don't know a lot of the Olympics as it pertains to some of the broader sports or as the sports events broaden, were steeped in racism. Even the track and field, where there was a time, and I apologize for not being able to remember the gentlemen's names, where back in the day they didn't have cars, or a lot of people didn't have access to cars, so they would make messengers runners to take messages from one place to another. And white people began to bet on which messengers could take a message the fastest. And that began our track and field. And so even with it being steeped in that, and I know that recently there is a picture during the opening ceremonies of people from all different races, genders, sexual orientations, and it appears that they're at this table dining. And people have been offended, saying that they use these people to depict the Last Supper. And they're not depicting the Last Supper. It is another French painting where it was a meeting of feast. So that's what they're depicting. So a lot of people in the Christian or religious community have been very offended by that. But what I find is people who are easily offended don't usually know history or don't usually read. And even with my decisions to go to an accredited seminary, because I attended Bible college before, but it wasn't accredited. So with my recent decisions to attend seminary, it wasn't because I wanted to be more religious, but even when you look at the word theology, it's not the study about Christianity. It's supposed to be the study of about who and what God is. So sometimes people have pigeonholed even what theology is. So my reason for going back is because of what I find even within the gospel of inclusion, where we include people of the LGBTQ community, or as my dad would say, and he'll be coming on in a minute, people when they are in a certain age, of a certain age, they may not know all the new lingo. So one day when I was explaining to him what the letters meant, and he would say, "Oh, alphabeticals, the alphabeticals." So, but even in that, sometimes I find that people who are easily offended and like to strike arguments and don't really have a handle on history. So even in our biblical history, when we realize that the Greek and the Hebrew, a lot of our biblical history is steeped in Greek mythology. And people don't want to admit that. And people who are offended by hearing that usually are people who may either look at the letters in the Bible for face value, a lot of fundamentalists, but have they ever not only studied the book, but studied about the book? There are layers to this thing. Even though the Bible is a closed canon, even the Muslims have their Quran, everybody has a book. And because I have this book, that makes me right. And so it's really intriguing to hear people argue and get so easily offended. And in our country, we have hit historical marks by having the first Black woman to possibly become the official nominee for the Democratic Party. Our current Vice President, Kamala Harris, has secured the delegates to become the first Black woman nominated for president. And in the face of seeing that, especially as a Black woman and Black Women's World podcast and my sister Nista vibes and all of that, that is like a wonderful thing. And then on the heels of that was the revelation of the video with Sonya Massey, the Black woman who was shot in the face by police when she called, and they called, she thought she had a prowler in her home. And in the process of them coming in for the prowler, she had a pot of boiling water on her stove, and the police ordered her to go turn it off. And when she went, in the original written police report, it was stated that the policeman felt threatened that she was coming at him with the pot of boiling water, which once the body cam was finally released, that was not true. Now, he not only ordered her to go over and turn the pot off, but she was standing there and she said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." And he proceeded to shoot her, and a fatal shot. And when his partner said, "Let me go get the first aid kit," he just very coldly said, "No, she's dead." And they never administered any first aid. So on the heels of this great thing. And so what I've been totally removed from social media. I get to a point sometimes I literally have to deactivate that because of what it does, but I'm totally in tune to what's going on in the world. There's certain news sites that I choose to read, and I choose to read the ones that shoot from every angle, even the people that don't agree with me. And so, in looking at all these things are going on, and me as a Black woman, I know I may tend to be partial. And some people say, "Why do you always make that emphasis when we're all the God in us and we're all the same?" Well, the world does not see me the same. So when I present myself to the world, knowing the God who is with me, in me, and as me, I also know that everybody doesn't feel that way. So when I'm thinking about who we are and how we are, my mind, and I said all of that to say this, that I get to a point where I really want to ask, especially Black women, because of the weight that we have carried, really, they don't want to give us credit for a lot of things. I'm trying to say some of these things politically correct because they're very fresh with me. But not only does the world need a mother, the church needs one too. And I don't know what's going to happen politically. I know where my vote is going, but there's so many things going on that Black women have had to save the world from, where we wear our shero capes for the world and we pull the world out of ditches and out of muck and out of mire, and we coddle and we feed and we clothe and we embrace and we shelter and we care for people. And even though pastor is a title that the church bestows upon people, whether it be a calling or credentials, I believe Black women as a whole have an innate gift to pastor. And the word pastor it comes from a Latin word to pastor, and it means to shepherd, to care, to feed. And with that being said, with the weight that I know just in day-to-day jobs, there was a conversation that I had the privilege of having with someone the other day. And it was another Black woman. And she said she had called into a particular place to get help about a circumstance she was going through. And she said the other lady on the phone was so mean. And she was a Black woman. And why are Black women so mean? And I listened because as my coaching skills teach you how to listen actively. And as pastor and chaplain, that helps care for not only regular lay people and people who are not of my same belief system or the same things I may consider to be true. Sometimes you just have to listen, and you never understand a person's mind, or just let them get it out. I learned in the school systems working with high schoolers and middle schoolers and even a lot of collegiate students. A lot of times people don't let them get them out, get their words out, their feelings, what they're thinking. We're so quick to suppress their wrong or what we think is wrong. We never let them get them out. And they're just this little bottle being shaken over and over again where they got things they want to say, but adults don't let them get it out. And time comes and they're shaking and shaking, they just explode. So in the process of listening to this sister Nista, and she was saying, why are Black women so mean? And she began to explain the conversation, and the lady was sharp, and the lady did this. And I listened, and you listen non-judgmentally. You don't listen so you can get your answer. You really listen. And I listened to this person and I said, remember when you were in corporate spaces? Sometimes Black women are just tired. Sometimes we're just too damn exhausted for the next person. Sometimes we have nothing else left. Going through having to be twice as educated or twice as experienced to get half the pay. Going through even the church where we have run to for safety, rejecting us because of our gender. We're not allowed to hold the titles in many spaces, but we're required to do the work, expected to do the work. If it wasn't for the woman and the Black woman, the fibers of the church would have disintegrated long ago. Even in my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, we marched in 1913 with the women's suffrage, even though we were not having the opportunity to vote. We voted so white women could have the opportunity, because in the United States, the voting rights came from, white men could vote, and then Black men, and then white women, and then Black women. And we marched in 1913 to help to show our support for white women when we didn't even have the right. I said many a times, our hands have rocked the cradle of the world. Our breasts have fed children of the world. Our enslaved ancestors were wet nurses, breastfed white babies who in turn grew up to enslave and beat them. We have had so many things to ride upon our backs and shoulders. So when we sit in these spaces and we're in these corporate boardrooms sometimes, and I can attest to my own life being the only, and in times past, code switching so you could fit in, or the imposter syndrome, do I really belong here? So when I think about us as Black women, I think about the climate of the world and us being a superpower in this country, and that seems to be fading in so many different ways. And now we sit in the balance of history with a Black woman, very soon to be the first Black woman nominee for president of these United States, and yet we sit still seeing. And one trivia fact about Sonya Massey is that one of her relatives, ancestors, was hanged, lynched in where she's from. And to see that, how far have we come, really? To see that she was, in today's term, lynched. And so when I thought about that, and this person was saying, why was this fellow Black woman so mean? I said, I don't know. I can't say. But sometimes we got to consider what's going on the other end of the phone. And that person, my solace to this person was, that Black woman doesn't know you well enough to hate you. She doesn't know you well enough to be intentionally mean to just you. Can you imagine, or can you go back to when you were in corporate spaces, the one and the only? Not only that, in workplaces, maybe she was sitting in a cubicle and could be heard by other people. Maybe the call was being recorded. Do you recall when you called, did it say this call may be recorded? Sometimes we get those recordings. We don't know. Maybe she had a flat tire that morning. Maybe she's dealing with imposter syndrome. Maybe she's the only, because the person she talked to was leadership, C-suite in the space of the company. And I wasn't making excuses for the woman being mean. I just began to think of all the things I've just shared with you that are carried on the backs of Black women, and that we carry. We wear this hero cape. And I've said it many a times that we need to turn our cape into a robe sometimes and sit with ourselves. And all of that I've said to get to the point, in this Peace Place community, and if I choose to put this in the Black Women's World podcast space, I really want to know how you're doing. And Elder Dr. Andrea Hines and I talk often. And what we ask each other is, how are you doing? I mean, really. Because a lot of times when you say, how are you doing? And I've said so many times again, but it bears repeating. We want people to say they're fine. I'm fine. And that's the textbook answer we give. But what if you're not? What do you do when somebody asks you, how you doing? And they don't say fine? It tends to put a weight on the asker. I know with me, after having had surgery, and there were some things I was hoping that surgery would correct, and it did for the most part. But there are just some things that in my medical history where I've just had to learn to just keep walking with it. Whatever's wrong, I got to adjust my life. My friend Juliet, when we lived in Okinawa, she was a master sergeant in the Air Force, and she had this nice little cute little voice, and I said, I'm here. I was going through something then, and I said, she said, Miss Tracy, sometimes we just got to learn to walk with it. And I have always kept that in my mind. So, but in walking with it, when I say, how are you doing? And somebody doesn't say they're fine, the person who's asked feels a weight, like, oh Lord, what am I going to be asked? What are they going to require of me? Or what do I say? Or maybe how do I encourage them? And sometimes it takes you, even if you're shifting, it takes a minute. And sometimes your healing may take too long for other people. When are you coming back? Sometimes it's for their agenda. Sometimes people want you to just get back to your jovial self, or your nice self, or whatever parts of you that they love and are used to. But what happens when those parts have not gotten together yet? I always say I'm all right, because I have a tendency to take the whole me. Well, this part doesn't feel right, but this does, that does, that does, that does. So by the time I add that all up and do an average, I'm all right. I'm gonna be all right. So when I think about what we're going through, and what about somebody's physical condition? When we talked about the lady on the other line, on the other side of that phone, what if she had children? What if she's paying college tuition, or a single parent? Or what if she's happily married, but just is having to stick her chest out at work? Or what other type of clientele does she deal with? So I'm saying all this to say, consider the other person. We're getting ready to face a lot of things, because whatever they say about Vice President Kamala Harris in the United States, whatever you begin to hear people say about her publicly and demean her, they're saying about all Black women. They're saying she's even a DEI pick. And looking at her resume, I want to say, let's compare resume to resume and see what's up with that. And so I want to know, and we can, I may leave the mics on today because I don't want you to disclose I want to allow you the anonymity. But if I choose to put this on the podcast, I want people to be able to hear, because people will be able to identify with you. How are you doing? And I mean, really, and I think sometimes if you really don't want to know how somebody is doing, and I mean, really, maybe the question that a lot of I say the millennials brought into the place, or maybe even my generation, Generation X brought in it. They say, what's good? They don't want to know nothing else. Tell me what's good. If you really don't want to know how somebody's doing, change the question to say, hey, what's good? That way it requires them to tell you only what you really want to know. But if you have a core relationship, and I started talking about community and people who care for you, if you have a core relationship with people who care for you, then asking them how they're doing, be ready to sit with the answer. And it's not always going to be bad. I've shared times before, there's some good things. I've got a great opportunity. Somebody landed in my inbox. I didn't ask for them. I don't know even how they found me, but they want to be on the podcast. And I said, wait a minute, where did this come from? So, but I can't even tell because it's who, what, all that, because it's so good. But there's a couple people I can share that with. I could probably share that with y'all, but I'm not going to share it right now because it may go public. But sometimes it's a good thing when you can't really tell that you got that promotion and how much you really make. You know, that you are dating somebody, he fine as hell, but you can't tell because, you know, there's this shortage mentality and you don't want your girlfriends to know because she may get with him or want him, you know, or, or so many different reasons why people can't really be vulnerable with how fine they are or how fine they are not, you know, and it's how does your mind feel? And I asked somebody that a long time ago. I said, how does your mind feel? And your mind, MIND. And he said, first of all, ain't nobody ever asked me that, but I don't even know where my mind is. And then he said, you know what? My mind feels like a minefield. Stuff just blowing up everywhere. And I remembered that. And I said, wow. I said, well, how can we in this session get you to either dodge them or get the equipment to locate them so we can blow it up? How can we? And so being willing to sit in the space with somebody. And when we talk about community and being safe, because my friend D.E. Paul talks about, and Carlton Pearson mentions in his book, The Gospel of Inclusion, that many of us have been saved, especially if our religious beliefs or considerations believe that we are saved by grace through faith through Jesus, and other people believe in a form of salvation or conversion in their religion, but we be feeling saved. I'm saved, but do you feel safe? Do you feel safe with me? When many people in Peace Place, they come here for what I call bridging, because they have a pastor, a traditional church where they attend, where I may not be their pastor, but they come here because sometimes, or they come to me outside of Peace Place, like I said, even pastors and bishops and leaders and CEOs and C-suite people, because they cannot have the conversations with me with their pastors. They can't have those one-on-one. I can't tell you how I really feel because I may be in leadership and you may kick me out of leadership if you know that this is what's really going on in my life. And so I really want to know, and you may not feel, even Peace Place may not be conducive for you to share it in the group. And because of me being tasked to do a lot of things for a lot of people, I don't have a lot of one-on-one time anymore. So I have to do things with group. And not only because I'm being tasked, but because of a rested lifestyle I choose to live, that there are only so many hours in a day I'm going to give people. And some of those hours are going to always be family. They're going to be my close circle, then my community, then those people who pay me for their services. But then there are going to always be places that nobody gets but me. There are places in me that nobody gets to but me. And with that being said, I choose to use my time to value people and places, because when I'm with you, I am just with you. And in order to carve out that time, 24-hour clock that we live on does not afford me the time to be one-on-one with people like I used to, which is one reason why I retired the one-on-one coaching side of my coaching practice. And so when I ask you, how are you doing? What if you're not fine? Then what? What do we do with that? A lot of times when people are grieving and we people, I detest when people say they're in a better place, because to me that's that people don't understand. I don't like that. But when we say, how are you doing? How's your mind doing? How's your family? How's your hair? How's your job? How are your children? How are your finances? How and do I have the capacity to handle the answer? And if I don't, can I provide a resource to help with that answer? So in community, we become vulnerable with that. And you don't owe everybody in the world, how are you doing? Because you may not have the capacity in a genuine, authentic asking of that. It requires vulnerability. So how are you doing? I really mean really. And I mean, if we have to go from your soul, your mind, your body, your feet, your back, your ankles, do we need to schedule doctor's appointments? Are there some therapy sessions you need, whether they be physical therapy, occupational therapy, mental health therapy, talk behavioral therapy? To really get into it, because somebody will say, well, as a pastor and a chaplain, you're supposed to be giving scriptures, you're supposed to be doing this kind of stuff. I'm gonna tell you, some of the ones giving scriptures, we got to minister to the whole self. And I tend to lean to the side of that whole self out of counseling, spiritual counseling and coaching, and in the mental health first aid space, understanding what people really deal with. Those things they're thinking about when their head hits the pillow, and they're not all bad. Those things they think about when they first wake up before they reach for that cell phone. That's the space I minister to. That's the space that my pastorate and my chaplaincy caters to, not just going to the hospital to pray for the sick or going to the jails to pray for those in prison, but those who are sick in spirit, those who are imprisoned in their minds. That's my space. And I understand what my space is. So in this space of community, I want to have a conversation that many people won't have from the pulpit. And some of those people giving those messages only have those conversations with people like me. So it's a one-way thing, but I want to have a two-way street, Stacey Lattisaw. This is where we find love. How are you doing? And hopefully creating a safe space, not just a saved space, but a safe space where you can not only reveal that, because sometimes just talking about it heals it. Because a lot of times we don't heal. Trust me, I got a PhD in healing and all kinds of healing. A lot of times we don't heal because we don't want to admit the dis-ease. You can't heal from what you won't admit. And a question I ask people when I know that they're sick, either in spirit, soul, or body, is how do you heal? And a lot of times people don't have an answer for that. It's just something that arbitrarily, if you don't understand how you heal or know that you're sick and you can heal, then how do you work? What's the science behind how you heal? Do you get to a place where if like in my case, I didn't heal as like I thought I was gonna heal, but I'm healed enough to have a testimony. I still got some scars, like Donna Lawrence said, but I'm healed. Disappointments, but I'm healed. How can I take that and keep walking with it? I may dance with a limp, but I'm a dance. I'm gonna dance. And sometimes we think we gotta have it all right. No, use what you got, Moses. What's in your hand? Use what you got. And so I just want to encourage you to, as we go into this, and like I said, I'm going to keep the recording going. So those in Peace Place, if you do decide to share, how are you doing? And I mean, really doesn't have to be dark, doesn't have to be dismal. It could be happy. It could be wonderful. It could be a good report. If you choose to remain anonymous, I encourage that. because if I do this podcast, it literally goes all over the world. And we say that now because the internet is worldwide, but some of us had worldwide influence before there was an internet. And so, but something you say can help somebody else. I know somebody here is having issues on the job, and I'll say this as I begin to temper myself and close out, is that I worked at a place at one time that was absolutely terrible, terrible place to work. And at the time, I was being screened for cancer. I was having all kind of biopsies, you name it. I mean, they were looking for it big time. And I had have FMLA at work, and I got leave from some of my coworkers, but I had a terrible supervisor. It was a place where you could not get promoted unless you left, went and worked somewhere else, and you for a couple of years, then you could come back and get promoted. But in this particular space, you could not get promoted, and it was hell. But my coworkers were the bomb diggity. And one day I had been out for some time, and my supervisor, I had all the proper doctor's notes and everything, and she wanted to know what I was being treated for. And I said, that's not your business. And for that particular reason, she began to mistreat me and whatever. So every time I would be out for a little while and come back, she would try to be nosy. And I did not have the physical capacity to withstand her. So I would just shut down and just not even talk to her. She had me in her office for hours trying to pull things out of me, and I would just be quiet. And so an incident happened at work, and I wasn't even there. And some of my coworkers, they would come to me and, Tracy, what should we do? What should we do? Because we got to go. We're all going to be interrogated. We got to go get interviewed downtown by HR about this incident. And so I would show up at work with 60% energy, but I had to keep working and have headaches and all kind of stuff was going on. And I said, they said, what should we say when we go downtown? Because some of it they were guilty of. And what should we say? What should we say? And I said, don't say a damn thing. Because what you say can and will be used against you. Just don't say nothing. And so I didn't, like I said, I wasn't there. So all of a sudden I get an email and a paper letter saying I had to be interviewed. I said, what am I being interviewed? I wasn't even there. And so come to find out, when I get down there to the interview and they say, Tracy, and I said, why am I here? I wasn't even there on day of incident. And they said, well, you were overheard because we had cubicles. Another coworker overheard you telling your coworkers that when they came down here not to say anything. And I'm looking and it's this long boardroom table. There's 3 people at one end and I'm on the other end by myself. And they said, we were told that you, that someone told us that you told your other coworkers not to say anything. And they sat there looking at me and they said, Tracy? I said, Tracy? We sat there for 23 minutes and I said nothing. What the hell I'm gonna come down, tell them not to say nothing. I come down here to say nothing. You understand what I'm saying? And so working at this place was horrible. So sometimes you got problems on your job, but sometimes you can be the light, because we used to have a lot of fun and we got our work done. We did the work, but it was like the children of Israel. They kept taking away the straw and wanted us to keep making brick. And baby, we kept churning out brick. And because they couldn't figure it out, and I know, and my coworkers, they could argue the point, but someone would agree with me. I know it's had a lot to do with my presence and our ability to laugh. Because even our current potential vice president nominee, they're criticizing her for laughing. They don't want to see a Black woman happy. They don't want to see you laugh. They don't want to see, something must be wrong. She must be silly because she's laughing. So all of these things going on with us as my sister Nisa lovers, and those are sister Nisa lovers is anybody who authentically loves a Black woman. You're welcome, and I'm talking to you. So how are you doing? And I mean, really, good, bad, indifferent, because somebody else may be doing the same way. And what you have to say is encouraging. I am intentionally going to probably go on longer. Number one, because we haven't been here. Number two, the world has told us for so many years, I know as a professional trainer, they train you to do things in 30 seconds, or even they said an adult attention span is 7 seconds. I don't believe that. How are you going to let somebody tell you how long your attention span is? That's your mind. And it's a lie straight from the pit, because you pay attention to television. We binge watch TV. We watch sports on television. Gamers, GTA or Madden, they ain't nothing wrong with your attention span. It's what you choose to pay attention to. So even in podcasts, they say don't go over 45 minutes with two people, or 30 minutes for one. Damn all of that. I don't even care anymore, because your problems are decades long. And you want 5 minutes? You dealing with encyclopedia volume length issues, and that's just one. And you want somebody to come fix that and help you heal that in 30 seconds or an hour? Okay. Well, keep stepping. As far as I'm concerned, this is time we got to get to the heart of the matter with a lot of things in our lives, because self-discovery to me is the key to peace in the world. But if we don't give people time to discover who they are, what peace will we have? And so if you choose to unmute, if not, we can end the podcast. And like I said, if you choose to speak, if you please keep your anonymity, unless you choose not to. And so I'm just going to open it up for anybody who would like to go. How are you doing? And I mean, really? Or if you just like to give feedback on what's being said, we'll welcome that as well. So go ahead, Peace Place.
Good morning. I'll go first. Good morning.
Well, good morning. How are you?
That's the question of the hour, right?
Yes.
I am transitioning.
Mm.
I have mixed emotions because there's so much taking place and going on at one time. But I'm okay. I can honestly say that I have really tapped into the peace of God in everything. And I really understand the scripture now that I'm getting older, the peace that surpasses all understanding,
Mm.
even my own, because I'm like, I should be going crazy right now, but I'm not.
Is it guarding your heart and mind through
Yes,
Christ
man.
Jesus? Yes.
Oh, Jesus, that is an understatement. And I can so, and I'm again, I always say I'm so grateful for Papa and the seeds that were planted in me at such a young age. I am grateful that I wasn't tainted early. I don't have that background of religiosity
Mm-hmm.
and the Baptist and all. I didn't have none of that. So
Mm-hmm.
it was easy for me to be a sponge, and I just had good water.
Awesome.
I guess
Awesome.
you can say. I'm a new grandma. Yay.
Well, congratulations, Grandma.
Yes, yes, yes.
Congratulations.
I know, right? I'm so
You
excited.
got a
You know,
grandson or granddaughter?
a grandson. He is 4 months now, actually.
Awesome.
But they live in Maine, so that's not good. But I'm grateful for the technology now, where we can get on and I video chat and I talk with them. We make it work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
So, and she's gone back to work, and so he's in childcare, and I don't like that. But it is what it is, and my young adults are adulting well,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm adjusting to a lot. I just I'm okay. I'm okay. Life is. I'm without a car, and that's challenging.
Mm.
But I will rent a car in a minute. So but I have got to find something, and I'm working on it. But I've also learned how to wait on God, just to wait for Him, because I can hear Him saying, "Just wait. I have a blessing for you,"
All
and I'm
right.
waiting for it.
All
I'm
right.
waiting. I'm waiting. Um, I'm gonna just leave it there. I could go so many different places with so many different things.
Well, awesome. I
But
really want to appreciate you for sharing, because somebody somewhere just became a grandma, and that's a good thing. So how are you doing? I mean, really, that's a wonderful thing. Your
mm,
legacy is continuing. You'll be
yeah,
50, and even though you don't have somebody else doesn't have a car right now and is looking for God to make a way. That just you sharing.
hmm
You just never know. Somebody, may meet that may be encouraging to somebody else to say, now I'm not a grandmother, but somebody else may say, I'm a grandma too, and I love technology, so thank you for sharing that with us this morning.
Mhm.
I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Mic is open. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. Um, so glad to see your radiant face this morning and the messages that you always convey. I absorb them and I'm just grateful and happy to be here, happy to be a part of Peace Place.
We're happy
Um,
to have you.
thank you. I like the fact that you asked the question, how are you doing? How is your mind? How do you really feel? You got to just think about those questions and not be so quick to answer, just because someone asks, you know. I'm happy and I'm bold with my hype and my happiness. And I'm not going to say it has always been peachy keen,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I'm happy and I choose to be happy. You know, I choose to try to ignore the chaos and the ignorance of people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if we pay attention to that, we sometimes conform to that and get ignorant ourselves. So it's like you say, it's what you choose to do,
Mm-hmm.
the way that you choose to be. We have control of all of that. And just
Yes.
because we share or discuss something with someone about things that has gone on or that is going on or that will go on, that doesn't mean that we're being a partaker of. But let me just tell you how I really feel. Or
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you what I'm going through so that you will know how I feel. But at the same time, I'm smiling, smiling, smiling because we all go through some things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's how we choose to accept those things that we go through. And yes, I'm a child of God. I believe God. I believe in his word. But also I believe in what God instilled in me.
Mm-hmm.
And he instilled peace. He instilled joy.
All
He
right.
instilled love. And this smile, you can't be mad at me, be mad at God. You can't be mad at my happiness, be mad at God because he is the one who created me and he planned my life. So he knew what I was going to go through. I didn't know, still
Mm-hmm.
don't know everything that I'm going to go through, but I'm going to accept it and I'm going to walk in grace. And when he tells me which direction to go in, I don't care what nobody else say. That's the direction that I'm going to go in.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I walk in my own direction, I can go left when I'm supposed to be going right. If he tells me to sit still and know that I am, then
Mm-hmm.
that's what I need to do.
Mm-hmm. And
And
sometimes it's harder to sit still than it
uh,
is to move, ain't it?
exactly. And as fast as I talk, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I promise you, I'm working on it. But sometimes you got to think about your words. You got to
Mm-hmm.
think about what you choose to share also. You
Mm-hmm.
got to think about how you choose to act and react to the foolishness and
Don't
thinking
don't
about
call it what it is.
yeah, thinking about our vice president right now, what she's going through, and the name calling and the people trying to diminish her record and all of that stuff. You know what I'm facing or going through. That's small. That's
Mm-hmm.
small to me. But
You
just
know
looking
what?
at
It's small, but it has the same frequency in the sense.
yeah,
It's small. If you can imagine, people think a paper cut is small. It's small,
mm-hmm,
but that joker hurt.
right,
So
yeah,
we're touched on that
on
same
that,
wavelength.
yes,
She's just the face of it right now,
mm-hmm,
but you've had people do the same thing to you. She said, so she will be a marker of maybe how to handle it because she's in the public space. But go ahead. I just go
yeah.
ahead.
And it's like what she's going through it's like wow, but that's her journey.
Yeah.
And we are here, a part of her journey, backing her up
Mm-hmm.
because God put her in that position and equipped her with all the necessary tools and everything that He that she needed for this destination that she's on. But he also equips us for what we're going through. Ours seems small because it's not in the spotlight of everyone. She's in the spotlight. She's getting that publicity and all of that stuff. But you can learn from her journey of what she's going through. Hers is like it's on a magnitude, this big scale. But just think about it. My title is not as big as hers. But we still all have a title, whether it be boy, woman, man, girl, whatever. We all have that title, and we have to encourage one another, and don't join into the foolishness of what's going on. We need to do our part, and know that we all have feelings. We all are human. You know, no matter you know how are you doing, no matter how fine you say you are, there's some time when that fine becomes like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It is what it is. But you and you go through it, but you go through it with grace. And I started off with that smile. And you can't kill that smile. And I would say, don't let nobody kill our smile.
Yeah. You know, smile, I've heard somebody say a smile is joy with a microphone. You know, the song used to say, this joy I have, the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. You know, the evidence of joy is a smile, because happiness can fade, but joy is down there on the bedrock. And so a smile is joy with a microphone. And when you've got her or us being like I said, anything, a lot of times, even when gold is made, the heat is applied and everything comes up to the top, all the trash comes to the top, and then they slop it off, and then you have your pure gold. So a lot of times, like I said, even with the teenagers, when I would say you let them talk, with these people who are spewing their racist and sexism and fascism and xenophobic or whatever their rhetoric, just let them talk, because it's showing me how you've been feeling the whole time.
That's right.
A lady said that the world is getting worse. I said, no, baby, the veil is just being lifted. This is how it has been. Let them just keep talking. What we don't do is argue. Don't get on their frequency. You know, you keep vibing high, but just see, it's like it's in the Color Purple reference, when Miss Sealy said, I'm just gonna sit here and see what color she put on the wall. Or when Mr. was making them biscuits and she sat in that chair, but when he put gas in the stove, you saw the rocking chair rocking by itself. You know when to go. But I appreciate you sharing that. You know, the whole thing is, you know, keep smiling. Kurt Franklin said, even though I hurt, see, I smile. It's not faking it. You're not faking it. But my joy has a microphone, or my joy has a mirror. You know, thank you so much for sharing that. Who else would like an opportunity to share? I don't want to pressure anybody, but the if you unmute, the floor is yours. All right, I see you. You're not unmuted, but I see you. Okay. Anybody? Oh, she just wanted to be on camera, but don't want to say. That's no problem. So I just want to thank you all for being here, for whatever you get out of being a part of Peace Place, and encourage you to, this is just the beginning of some things that are going to be coming, to know who you are, to know how you feel, even if you just ask yourself, how am I doing? Oh, I hear somebody. I hear a voice.
Hey, Tracy.
Oh, there she is. I can hear you. Okay.
I'm on a different device this morning, and I couldn't get myself unmuted. But I always appreciate the conversations and what you bring to the table for us when we do get together. The things that that stick out for me is being able and being ready to sit with the answer when people do share with you how they are really doing. I am in a season of extreme gratitude because of so many things that happen and have happened just this month. But I think the difficulty for me sometimes is, and you were saying you don't want to fake it, but so many things can be going on sometimes that you do get to that point where somebody mentioned, what do you share?
Mm-hmm.
Having to figure out what is it that I choose to share? Because I can tell you about the physical part, or I can tell you the occupational part, or I can tell you about the spousal part, the family part, and all of those have different degrees of peace and different degrees of how am I feeling really. And I got up this morning and struggled and got on the call, and I know that when I am in pain, it clouds everything that I'm going through, everything else. It gets in that mind field, um, and do with that, because you don't want to say, oh, I'm fine, because you're not. You you don't want to get into that part, and it's not necessarily about not wanting to be vulnerable or not wanting Aaron. Sometimes it is just so much.
Mm-hmm.
That's when that quiet time and that still time for me gets so important, because you don't have time for me to tell you, to be able to share everything that's going on. That's the time that I need to just sit with him. I know he knows. I already knows the struggles. He knows the problems. He knows what I'm feeling. I can get the direction that I need from him. But sometimes it is just overwhelming. It's just overwhelming. You have things going on, and you know the story. Just in this month, you surgery. My daughter didn't feel well and went to urgent care for what she thought was a bronchial issue and ended up having quadruple bypass surgery.
My Lord.
I was going to go and help her, was excited about going to do that and do things for her. And I came down with COVID, and it's just this ball. If you ever saw Indiana Jones with that ball, just gathering stuff, and it's just going and going and going. But through it all, I know that I'm not alone. Through it all,
That's
I take
key.
the fact that he already knew. Through it all, I know there are people in my circle that when they ask me, how are you doing? They don't even have to put the really behind it. They have space and time and capacity for me to really share what I need to share in that moment. Because an all day thing is not an all the time thing. It is moment by moment, sometimes hour by hour, day by day. So I thank you for this community and this space that is a safe space for us to be able to say how I'm feeling, really. I appreciate that, and appreciate you and all of the members of the community.
You are truly welcome, and we appreciate you for being a member of the community. And so much of what you said, it will be to the point where when you talked about which part do you want? Because we don't want to use, and I wish I had said this earlier, but maybe it's just fitting for now, the opportunity to just throw up on people.
Right.
And they're just overwhelmed with your stuff till they leave feeling bad, and then you don't want to pass judgment. Sometimes I have usually when I call someone, because I don't usually make a lot of calls, and there's a lot of reason behind that, but usually when I call someone, I say, did I catch you at a good time? And then I'll say, how much time do we have? because it'll keep me cognizant. And then there's this almost math I do to make sure that at least we got half and half. If you say an hour, I'm gonna go 30 minutes and I'm gonna give you 30 minutes. And that's if we're equal. That's not a client call. That's my friend. That's my circle. But I even ask my circle intimate pieces. I even ask my husband, is it a good time? And I think that maybe that's coupled in relationship because of the fact you mean so much to me that I can come to you. I need to consider how you're feeling in that moment. You also said something about pain, that cloud, because sometimes when we're in pain, and that could be physical, emotional, spiritual, because there's a religious trauma that has happened to a lot of people, and we're going out through our whole lives, those pains people can't see, and we're talking to them through those filters of pain, and we're clouded, or we're talking to them through and I don't want to always assume everything is negative, but those are the things we don't want to talk about. You also talk, when you're talking about, is this which part do you want? You and I had talked, and I said I get so tired of these conferences and workshops. My winning season, people who lead, getting $1 million. Da, 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 da. I'm not saying those things are necessary. That's not my space. But I also know the faces behind the flyers. I coach, counsel, and pastor sometimes the faces behind the flyers, and it doesn't mean they're not qualified and they won't be effective. But I want to one day, I don't know when, host a conference for those of us who have survived and thrived what I call a whack-a-mole season. Where time you think you got something solved, another thing has popped up. Time you think this is another. I don't want to talk. Don't give me $1 billion if I can have peace with 500. Those people who have survived and thrived through a whack-a-mole season, or their life many times as Black women is a whack-a-mole season. We live whack. I can't even wear my hair, my natural hair, because they got to pass the Crown Act. So how do I wear my hair so it please white folks at the table? I can't use my own vernacular. So how do I code switch so that you feel better about what I'm speaking about? So you tell me that I'm well spoken. Now I got to do that, but then how do I? And so I'm dealing with these problems that many people don't even have to work with, just walking through the door. And then you got a wayward child, or you got a child that's high achieving, and you're trying to figure out how to pay for college, or you got to, and then you're dealing with aging parents, or dealing with people, loudmouth folks. And so you got these whack-a-mole. You solve this one, here's another. I want to talk to those people. You can keep all that other mess. I want to talk to those people who no longer want to wear a mask. I want to talk to those people that will come to a conference. We ain't got on no makeup. We'll need no phones. We can show up in pajamas and we just celebrate one another just for surviving and thriving. That is the reality of where we live. All this other stuff just don't mean. I almost said a word, but y'all know the word I almost said, but it don't mean that. I see somebody else unmuted. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, you can hear me pretty good.
Yes, loud and
Okay.
clear.
Um, I want to say that I'm living in three places, in three dimensions. One, the first dimension is the spiritual dimension. I know who I am spiritually. I know the God that I am, the God that is in me, the God that created me in his image and in his likeness. I know that will never change.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm experiencing a dimension that of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I like what you said about mind field. I'm living also in that dimension where I'm experiencing some things mentally in relationship to how I'm thinking about things. And you brought up to me that Sandra Massey situation.
Mm-hmm.
I am angry about that.
Mm-hmm.
I am very angry about that. How this police officer, who they found out was discharged from the army because he had some issues,
And
and
several other police
several
departments.
other police departments as well. And how he comes into this lady's apartment. She called the police. She called them, and they came in. And how I I heard the sound of his voice. I didn't like the sound of his voice, and how she went to take the boiling water off of the stove, and he shot her. And when he shot her, the bullet went in just under her left eye through her head. And it was, her children indicated that she had some
Mental health. Yeah.
mental health issues. But she called them, and the other officer, you could hear him say, where's the gun? Where's the gun? And there was no gun. And I am pissed off about that. I am angry about that, because this guy now wants to declare his innocence, plus he wants back pay, plus he wants to be reinstated. And I'm just going to be frank with you. I'm saying to hell with him, because he did this woman unjust, and her family has a right to be angry. And I am angry about that. Plus, Tracy, y'all, I go way back. Yeah, I wasn't born yesterday, but I go way back, and I can tell you how the white man also introduced this anger into the black woman's world. The white man taught black women how to hate their own men, because during slavery time, the white man wanted to usurp authority over the black man, and he caused the black man to be humiliated in the presence of his black woman. And that's why I have even noticed over the last couple of years or so, when I go into the store, it appears to me that I get more respect and honor from white women than I do black women.
That's
Because
interesting.
because black women still have a sense of, can I trust this guy? What does he want? What is his motive? And so forth. And the tension still exists between black women and black men. And I believe it was because slavery, during the slavery time. And see, y'all, I remember back in the late 50s and 60s, I remember how black women were treating black men even at that time. And I'm saying that it was because she was trained to hate, or trained to relate to black men by white men the way that they do. And I'm believing that that's why uh, basically the white man, they don't have any respect really for black women, and they taught black women that all black men wanted was sex. And that's where a lot of this, see, I was back there in that day. I experienced all of that. When the police officer used to sick the dogs on people that were marching in front of the FW Woodwork store. I had police dogs sicked on me. I had the water hose from the fire trucks squirted on me and everything. So I remember the bitterness that the white man had towards black people in that day during slavery. Plus, and I said, now spiritually, you have to understand, I am that I am. So in the spirit realm, I do have the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. I know who I am. And mentally is where I've dealt with this Sandra Massey thing. And don't talk about Kamala Harris. I mean, the fact that she's in the place where she is now. And I heard the term of endearment that her stepchildren call her Mamala. They call her Mamala. Her husband, Doug, is Jewish, and the lip message that Donald Trump and JP Vance, these guys are saying about her is so ignorant. They're not dealing with the issues. They're dealing with her personality, her laughter, and so forth. And I love what you said. You know, to have this woman with the laughter that she has, that brings joy to hear her laugh like that. So in the midst of all of this attack that's being levied towards her, you know. So and then so I speak of spirit, I speak of mind, and I speak of body. I can relate to Miss when she talks about the pain. I had back shots in my back, got to go get some more, I understand, in my back. So I'm dealing with my back. And like I said, my back keeps letting me know that my back is back there. You know, so I am dealing with that. And I make no apology for my anger right now. My anger is real to me. And it's my anger, I believe, to some extent, that's sustaining me. Yeah, because of the fact that I want to see, and definitely when you talk about prayer, I definitely want to see Kamala Harris succeed, and her family, not just her family, and I believe she has a legitimate agenda. I'm praying for that. But again, when I hear the anger, and I say it, I call their name. When I hear the anger of Donald Trump and these Republican people that are fueling anger against her with no legitimate purpose, they're attacking her and are saying nothing about her policies or whatever have you. So I'm speaking truth.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
this is where I am.
It's a safe space.
I
It's a
am
safe
what
space.
I am.
Somebody listening is also angry. Somebody
And
listening is also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm saying this, then I'll finish. But the fact of it is, I'm living in these three dimensions. In my spirit, I know who I am. I have peace, and I love who I am in the realm of the spirit, in the realm of the mind. This is where I'm dealing with. I'm reading. My mental capacity is healthy. It's good. It's
That's
well, and
good.
so
Awesome.
forth. Yeah, but it's in my body, which is in the world, that I'm dealing with this whole issue with Kamala Harris and so forth. So I just wanted to say this, that I am very content living in these three dimensions. Now I live there, spirit, mind, and in my body, and I'm dealing with them, handling them very well. Okay.
Awesome. So you got the alignment is there. It's something you said, I think a lot of people are afraid to admit is anger. Sometimes it's hurt. You when especially as a black people, as a black woman, you hear these comments about her. Like I said, that if they're saying it about her, they've been, stifling it for a long time, and now here it is. So that's how they feel about most of us. And I don't like to overgeneralize, but you understand the consensus. And so when you hear it, it's hurtful at first. It sometimes shock, like, dang, I thought we had come a little farther than this. And then it's pain, and then it can turn into anger, because anger fueled in the right direction becomes passionate. What do I do with this anger? If it's to am I to become an advocate? How do I pray? We sit in and we just don't sit in it. But if we don't allow ourselves to be angry, because anger, like I said, it can be the fuel for passion. So we have to allow ourselves to feel the emotions. It's what we do with the emotions we feel. And something you said earlier, and I never people say, well, I got a black friend or I got a white friend. I will say this. I think we're living at a time where we need to make sure we find our 21st century Quakers. Because with Harriet Tubman, when she was freeing the slaves, and she said, I would have freed thousands more if they knew they were slaves. When we think about, even when it comes to our beliefs in God, with God, as God, some people don't even have a clue that they're bound, that they're imprisoned by certain things. So even when it comes to us, our physical bodies, I see Kamala Harris and many of us in our realm of influence, our sphere of influence, where we are a Harriet Tubman type. And so because of the fact of the different disenfranchisement against Black peoples and people of color, a lot of times, like with the Underground Railroad needed Harriet, but Harriet also needed the Quakers. And we need to make sure that we vibe in a way that we attract our 21st century Quakers, because even with Quakers, their original name was the Religious Society of Friends. And among that Religious Society of Friends, they made a rule and a law back in 1774, officially, because before then they didn't, but in 1774, that they would never enslave a human being. So with that anger, it fueled their passion to be extremely important for the Underground Railroad. The places that those who were enslaved stopped, the clothes, the food, all of that, the houses that they lived in, where they hid, the wagons that someone would take, or the horses that were provided. So in this freedom, because one of Kamala Harris's campaign slogans is, "We ain't going back." So in moving people forward to free people, if we're going to own and identify with her as a fellow Black woman, and she's also Indian, but are we going to take the whole thing? If we're going to identify with the part that look at us through her, then look at us through her. Where are we leading people? What can we get people to vote for us to do? And get us some Quakers, get us some white folks, those people who are sister-niece lovers, those people who love us, because we don't want to overgeneralize. But we know where the deed was done. And matter of fact, one of my white 21st century Quakers sent me a meme the other day, or reel the other day, and it said, "Where were white people mentioned in the Bible? They ain't in there." So, but with that being said, I thank God for those what I call accomplices, those people who are not Black, that are not only comrades in arms, but with us, those 21st century Quakers. So we can take that. We know what white folks did to Black people in the 60s and from, really the whole time, from 1619, forward. But there were some that weren't. That's who we need to vibe with. That's who we need to unite our anger and turn into passion. To how do we fuel this thing in the right direction? How do we become the Harriet Tubman to support our vice president or president nominee to help her along? Can we give to the campaign? Can we do something community? We know how important local elections are as to how we got in this mess. We haven't paid attention to local elections as to how people go from judges to state senators and all of that, and then get to the Congress and then get to they climbed a ladder that we didn't pay attention to the rungs. So I really appreciate you for sharing. I got one more person that wants to speak. Go ahead, sir.
Well, good morning, everybody. In hearing a lot of what's going on in not only the world, but just in our hearts and our minds and things like that. For me personally, I know that from a physical perspective, I do have a lot of aches, things like that. But I walk through those, no problem at all. But seeing a lot of things, especially on higher levels through employment and things like that, it's just not commonplace of what we're talking about now. You can feel the energy of a lot of those areas, and sometimes it makes me anxious at times. But I'm figuring out ways to manage that, as well. Because you're going to hear things in some spaces, and because you are part of the community, you're going to need to know how to manage yourself in those spaces too, so that sometimes you can be like a spy on the wall, that you get intel in places that you would normally have, or even the common citizen may not have in some cases. So you got to be real conscious of that, of the things you hear, because trust, people will talk. You just let them listen. You just listen, to sit back. They'll tell you everything you need to know. And
True.
sometimes I just, even for me personally, I do that a lot. And and what I try not to do is swallow everything, because in doing so, it can inflict harm on your own self, your own psyche, your mind, and things like that. Because I have traveled in some spaces in the very near future that are hot, um, and I have concerns because I'll be on the road, to do it. But nonetheless, I believe that God has a shield around me, and all will be well. But it's just the fact of knowing, or the possibilities, and things like that. But just in this space, when you say, how am I doing? There's a lot going on around me, but I believe in rising above it to the best of my ability, to continue to focus ahead as well, because our future is always going to be bright. No matter what's going on at this very moment, the future is always going to be bright. It's as bright as you want it to be, um, in whatever space you're in, mentally, spiritually, naturally, whatever it is. But just being encouraged to know that life still goes on. As previously mentioned, that there was a time and space where things were very hectic. But here we are today in this lifetime, that we get to see all the blessings and the great things that are happening because of that space and time. When we were marginalized and things like that. It's in the same type of way now, but the thing is, I was sharing with Tracy yesterday, that as I look at the Olympics right now, thinking on those terms, looking at the Olympics right now, I never knew.
Your volume is decreasing. I'm not sure why, but
Why not?
just continue to talk because I want you to be heard.
Yeah. So, yeah, it could be my but anyway, um, I was looking at the Olympics as an example. The simple fact that I've never known to really realize how many Black folks are in so many places. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. And because we're everywhere, that means that magic will and can happen. And I appreciate being that, and even being a Sister Easter lover. That is a beautiful place to be, and support those that I love, and knowing, from an optimistic perspective, that all will be well, despite what it looks like. All will be well, because that's how we get where we're going.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Something you said early on in your statement was self-management. I think that's a great thing. We all can benefit from our emotional intelligence. That if we can just manage, I think a lot of key to our lives, if we can manage our emotions. Someone said earlier about being angry. It's angry, but it's not angry out of place. It's managed. And it's not to stifle it. It's just to shift it in the right direction. Something else you said as far as being cognizant, being aware of what's going on. When we say, how are you doing? I mean, really. And when the person answers, it's then what? I've heard several people on here say about physical pain and ailments. Then what? What do we do about those? Some their shots, cortisone shots are going to be happening in somebody's back. Somebody's got surgery. I'm recovering from surgery. So when someone is vulnerable enough to share those answers, you don't always have to have a solution. I had to learn that the hard way, because I'm like, when somebody come to me with a problem, I don't have the answer. And it was wearing me the hell out. Sometimes people just need to be heard. And sometimes I am not the place for it. And I'm quick to, there's a resource over there. Here's a link. But what do we do with what we've shared with one another? Those that may be listening who can identify with some of the physical pain, the anger about the Sonya Massey, the ways we feel about our current vice president, soon to be Democratic Party president nominee, Kamala Harris. What do we do about these things? Then what? First of all, we've heard them. We've gotten them out in a safe space. because thank God for those of you who would choose to remain anonymous. Ain't nobody coming at you because they don't know it's you. And they can come at me, but I ain't worried about it. But you have said it in a safe space, so you got it out. So now we know. As a community, we know what each other needs. We need prayer for healing. We need to understand where we all are. Maybe we can have more tolerance with one another as Black women, knowing that it's hot right now. And it's going to be hot. It's going to get hotter. He just mentioned as far as having to travel to hot spaces. And that's, or we're literally traveling through spaces where you see Trump signs and rebel flags, and literally having to drive on these 2-lane highways through North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, those type of things, but being vigilant, not being afraid. So when you're doing, if spiritually, somebody mentioned somebody having to have quadruple bypass, and then what? How are we managing or help them managing their care? Their whole life has changed. There are things they won't be able to do the same way anymore. We may not carry that weight, but can we hold the space for that? Somebody mentioned things on their job. How can we help with that? Do we have a resource? If it's a financial thing, you may not be able to come here to get your financial needs met, but are there resources? Do we need to have a financial class on how we manage our money? I like to say, I don't like to spend money, I circulate money. So, so once we know these things, it allows us to have a better approach on how we move in community. If somebody's saying, yeah, I'm having some pain right now, then do we say, because they're having to filter their words through that pain, and we're having to be patient with that healing because they're not saying I'm good and we can put them right back to work? Are we able to? So I appreciate you so much for illuminating your state of being, because that's what knowing how you feel is a state of being. How do I be right now? And then, because we got to know how we be, so then we know how to do. There's some things, somebody who just said they had back surgery a few months ago is now getting shots in their back. You think I'm gonna come ask them to help me move or lift something? Or even do I expect them to move quickly? So now that I now know how to approach them. Somebody said that they don't have a vehicle. So I don't live in their area, but is there a ride share program? If I hear about somebody having a car for sale, I can let that person know. So see, when it comes to when I know how you're doing, there's a then what. Now, everything can't come from this community. We don't come to this community and say, can I borrow this money from you? Can I do this? But being aware, somebody may have a car they're trying to get rid of, or somebody may know somebody who has a finance program to help people get a car. Somebody who may be having issues on a job, maybe a lawyer, maybe. So see what making ourselves vulnerable. LaTanya Jr., I've repeated it so many times. I knew that vulnerability was strength, because I get to narrate and tell you where I'm vulnerable. I get to choose how much I tell you. But she taught me that vulnerability is also a strategy. So now that we've been vulnerable with one another, now we can strategize how to help if it's our place. I may not have any way to help the person whose daughter just had quadruple bypass, because I'm not physically able to help anybody else right now because my physical situation. But if I found out there's a program that helps people who are having illnesses and can't go to work, are there meal programs where they can go pick up food? You see what I'm saying? There are other ways. So thank you for giving us ways that after I know just a little bit of how you're doing, and I mean, really, and then what? Well, this is what I do. And if I can't, at least I can pray. And prayers do have hands, feet, ears, voices, and eyes. And maybe today I may not have it, but because of the conversation, I may be talking to somebody next week and say, boom, and give you a call. So that's how community works. That to me is how at least 21st century pastoring can work, not just a traditional setting, even though those can be very helpful and are necessary, where someone comes and teaches you from the pulpit, but can we really have a life exchange and develop, first of all, know our relationship currency, know the rate of that exchange in community. So if I'm a gallon over here, but a pint over here, then I got to know that this person is a gallon and I can go to them with this. But don't put the pressure of a traditional church setting on this group if you got a local church where you attend and that's where all your finances go. This is the bridge between that, or for those who don't go to traditional church settings, then I am their sole pastor. So even as a Black Women's World perspective, when you hear these podcasts or you hear these things, it's for you to buy in with your own self, discover how, first of all, this helps you, and pass it along to help somebody else. And maybe we can build the strength and the courage to really know, how are you doing? I mean, really. And once I find out, and then what? I'm TracyMac. I'm grateful. I love y'all for real.
Peace Place for Me, a virtual connection where the contagious love of God abides and thrives. We are an inclusive community, purposed to enhance and expand spiritual and holistic growth to advance the kingdom of God. We get to enjoy life more abundantly in peace. You are welcome to join Pastor and Chaplain TracyMac in this virtual, interfaith, inclusive, and purpose-filled community. For access to join our virtual meetings on the second and fourth Sundays at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, email us at peace@blackwomensworld.com. That is, peace@blackwomensworld.com. Or visit our website at peaceplaceforme.com. We look forward to seeing you.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, brought to you in part by TracyMac Solutions for Life Institute, coaching and training services. No doubt you have enjoyed being in our world, and it doesn't have to stop here. Head on over to blackwomensworld.com. This is my personal invitation to you to stay connected with me on social media and more. I'd love to see you there, and I'm so grateful you came to be with me here. Invite someone else to join you in our queendom next time so they can feel the vibe of our tribe of Sister-nistas and Sister-nista lovers too. Remember to be kind, be authentic, be generous, be excellent, be grateful, and while you're at it, go ahead and be extraordinary, because that's just what Sister-nistas do, on purpose, through mission, with passion and compassion. It's a Black woman's world, baby, and you, my Sister-nista, are proof. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and your host, TracyMac. Wherever you are in the world, may you love and be loved by somebody. Peace.